Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever seen a comedian who makes you laugh and think, kind of all at the same time?
Mm,
Someone who, pushes boundaries and starts conversations just by being funny.
definitely. It's what the best comedy often does.
Well, today we're dissecting a comedic phenomenon that seems to do just that. Druski's white face sketches.
Yes. Druski, he's been everywhere.
Exactly. So are they just hilarious parodies, or do they cross a line into controversy? That's the big question.
It's a really interesting one.
Our mission today is to take a proper deep dive into the sources we've gathered, articles, interviews, cultural analyses, basically, to unpack the history, the humor, and, the heated debates these performances spark.
Trying to offer a really insightful look at this whole cultural moment.
Right. So if you're online, you've probably seen Drew Boards, better known as Druski.
Hard to miss him, really.
He's got millions of followers, these huge viral sketches, collaborations with people like Drake, Jack Harlow. I mean, his rise has been pretty meteoric.
It really has. And what our sources consistently highlight is his, mastery of digital comedy.
How so? What makes it specifically digital?
Well, it's these short meme-ready sketches. They kind of bypass traditional stand-up timing. They've become cultural shorthand almost instantly.
Okay, I see. Less setup punchline, more instant recognition.
Precisely. His humor lives right at that intersection of, exaggeration, sharp satire, and some often uncomfortable cultural truths.
And he really nails those archetypes, doesn't he? Like the sources mention the overzealous coach or the shady promoter.
Or that classic try-hard frat boy.
Oh, yeah. And that frat boy character, that really leads us right into the core of today's deep dive, this whole white face aspect.
Absolutely. Building on that point, it's fascinating how Druski has really become a master of capturing these digital moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's not traditional stand-up. His performances are just perfectly tailored for social media. A glance, an accent, an exaggerated walk. You can go viral faster than a perfectly crafted joke.
So he's not just telling jokes, he's creating these cultural touchstones.
Exactly. They resonate because, as our sources show, he taps into these shared observations about how people act in certain social settings.
Okay, so let's get specific. The crucial distinction here, and where a lot of our sources really dig in, is understanding what whiteface actually means in Druski's work.
Right. It's not just one thing.
We're talking about sketches where he might use, some makeup, maybe a wig, or sometimes it's just adopting a particular way of speaking, certain mannerisms.
Body language, too.
Yeah, body language to caricature stereotypical white characters. For instance, the sources mention him playing a totally tone-deaf corporate boss.
Oh, I think I've seen that one. Trying to connect with the Gen Z employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awkwardly referencing TikTok trends he clearly doesn't get. It's pure cringe comedy.
Or the suburban dad, polo shirt, cargo shorts. Trying way too hard with slang he picked up from his kids.
Exactly. That specific flavor of awkwardness makes his sketches incredibly shareable, right? And the effect seems quite deliberate. It feels like it's intentionally flipping that really well-worn and, let's be honest, historically painful trope of blackface completely on its head.
It does seem to be a direct inversion, yeah.
So it allows a black comedian to sort of poke fun at aspects of white culture through mimicry.
Which is interesting in itself.
And our sources often note these skits go viral because they are both genuinely funny and incredibly familiar. People recognize the types he's mocking.
Like those corny authority figures or awkward partygoers.
Or, those cool white friends who maybe try a bit too hard, overcompensate when they're around their black peers.
Mm-hmm. The relatability factor.
The humor lands because there's this kernel of maybe uncomfortable truth in the exaggeration that lots of people, regardless of their background, seem to identify with.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, comedy has always thrived on caricature. That's not new.
Right, like SNL or Key and Peele.
Exactly. Think about Saturday Night Live or the brilliant stuff Key and Peele did. Performers there constantly use wigs, accents, body language, all to bring stereotypes to life.
And the goal is usually both entertainment and maybe a little bit of thinking.
Yeah, ideally thought-provoking. Druski operates within that same tradition, highlighting absurdities through these characters, but he does it with this very unique, digital, almost immediate flair.
That makes sense.
And what's really striking about Druski, as one cultural analyst we looked at pointed out, is his incredible versatility.
Oh yeah, he can switch it up fast.
His ability to just effortlessly slide between totally different personas is pretty remarkable. He can go from playing like a very nuanced Southern black uncle
Specific accent and all.
to suddenly being this hyperactive frat boy from Ohio, all in maybe a minute-long sketch.
That kind of range is definitely a skill.
It really underscores his comedic talent, but it also, as our sources point out, it raises these bigger cultural questions, doesn't it?
About what exactly?
About identity, perception. Who gets to define what's funny? Especially in a society as diverse as ours. He's not just mimicking, he's doing this complex dance of cultural observation and, well, commentary.
Okay, so that brings us right to the heart of the debate, doesn't it? The central tension.
A double standard argument.
Yeah. Whenever whiteface comedy pops up, this debate ignites. Some critics argue, look, this is a double standard. They ask, if blackface is so widely condemned, and rightly so because of its horrific racist history,
Which it absolutely is.
then why is it okay, or at least more socially acceptable, for black comedians to parody white people in a similarly exaggerated way?
It's a question that definitely comes up.
How do the sources address that? Because even if you understand the history, that feeling of a double standard can be pretty strong for some people. It gives you pause, you know?
It does, and this raises that critical point, the one debated by comedians and cultural critics, and it's absolutely crucial because it's all rooted in history and power dynamics.
Okay, let's break that down.
We have to be crystal clear about blackface. In the 19th, early 20th centuries, it wasn't just like a few jokes. It was a massive, pervasive tool of dehumanization. Minstrel shows.
Right, a whole industry built on it.
White performers in blackface, exaggerating features, mocking black speech, pushing these awful stereotypes, the ignorant Jim Crow, the lazy Zip Coon. These weren't just characters, they were propaganda.
So not just humor, but something actively harmful.
Deeply harmful. It was a cultural practice that reinforced systemic racism. It justified discrimination. It made it socially acceptable to diminish black people, to deny their humanity, their rights. The historical context isn't just like background info. It's fundamental to understanding the lasting damage.
Okay, so that's the context for blackface. How does whiteface differ according to the analyses?
Well, by stark contrast, whiteface, as Druski uses it, it just doesn't carry that same profoundly damaging historical weight.
No history of systemic oppression linked to it.
Exactly. Across multiple analyses, the distinction is clear. It functions much more as satire. And often, it's what cultural critics call punching upward.
Punching upward, meaning?
Meaning it targets cultural norms or behaviors associated with a group perceived to have more social power or privilege. Or sometimes it targets awkward attempts at assimilation or just plain obliviousness.
So, like, Druski's frat boy isn't meant to dehumanize all white people.
No, not at all. It's critiquing a specific set of behaviors and attitudes, often linked to a particular socioeconomic group or subculture. His sketches generally land not as these broad attacks on whiteness itself, but as humorous critiques of behavior patterns.
Behaviors that are recognizable, maybe even relatable in different contexts.
Right, recognizable across various social settings. It's about highlighting those human quirks, especially when they pop up in situations where someone has, or thinks they have, some kind of social or cultural advantage.
I definitely see the distinction you're making about history and power. But, as some sources caution, isn't there still a potential risk?
What kind of risk?
That any kind of racial caricature, even if it is punching upward, could still accidentally reinforce some stereotypes or maybe alienate some viewers, regardless of the comedian's intent.
That's certainly part of the discussion, yeah. The line could be fine.
It seems like a real tightrope walk, doesn't it? Trying to make people laugh, make them think, but also sometimes making them uncomfortable enough to actually spark a real conversation. And when you look at the audience reactions online, which our sources did, it's mixed, though mostly positive, it seems.
Off the positive feedback, yeah.
People often say things like, bro, he nailed this character, or, oh my God, I know someone just like this. That really highlights how relatable these archetypes feel to people.
That sense of recognition seems absolutely key to why his comedy connects with so many. It validates their own observations.
Right. However,
Yeah.
it's definitely not universally accepted. Our source material is pretty clear on that.
No, there's definite pushback.
A segment of viewers argues, look, comedy just shouldn't rely on any form of racial caricature, period.
Regardless of target or history.
Yeah. Their concerns, which you see across different online forums and opinion pieces, often boil down to the idea that even if the intent is satire, the effect can still be to sort of perpetuate stereotypes or cause discomfort.
Especially now,
Yeah.
maybe, in this hyper-aware climate.
Exactly. They might say, okay, maybe the history of blackface is different, but the act itself, using makeup, exaggerating mannerisms to portray another race, just feels problematic today, especially with all the focus on race and representation.
So from that perspective, satire touching on identity becomes inherently tricky, potentially polarizing.
Yeah, which creates a real challenge for comedians like Druski, who are playing right on those cultural fault lines.
Indeed. And, this pushback you mentioned, it really highlights a core truth about comedy. It has always tested boundaries. That's kind of its job, in a way.
Right. It pushes the envelope.
Look at the greats, the lineage. From Richard Pryor's groundbreaking social commentary to Dave Chappelle's really incisive observations.
Both definitely walk that line.
Iconic comedians have consistently walked that very fine line between humor and offense. Druski's white-face sketches, they exist squarely within that tradition. They ask audiences to reflect, How do cultural behaviors look when seen from an outside perspective, maybe an exaggerated one?
He's using the universal nature of human quirks, maybe, but amplified by specific cultural stuff.
Exactly. And what's truly insightful, I think, from digging into our sources, is how Druski's comedy, by exaggerating certain behaviors, actually ends up exposing a kind of shared humanity.
How so? Like a mirror.
Yeah, like a funhouse mirror held up to all of us. Think about the common thread. He shows how ridiculous we can all be when we're trying too hard.
Trying too hard to do what?
To fit in, maybe, or trying to project authority, or even just pretending to understand a culture we're not really part of.
Okay, I see that. Like the awkward boss isn't just about bosses. It's about anyone out of touch with the group they're trying to lead or impress.
Precisely. His frat boy characters aren't solely about white culture. They resonate because lots of people have met individuals desperate for social acceptance, whatever their background. Or that out-of-touch boss speaks to a universal workplace dynamic generational gaps, power disconnects.
So by focusing on the behaviors, the awkwardness, the performativity, the desire to belong, he shows how similar our struggles and, well, our absurdities can be.
Yeah, he makes us laugh, not just at them, whoever them is in that sketch, but maybe at the reflection of us we sometimes catch in the performance.
So wrapping this up, we've really unpacked Druski's unique approach today. We've dug into the layers that make his white face sketches so impactful and, yeah, sometimes controversial.
Definitely complex stuff.
At its core, his comedy, as our sources seem to emphasize again and again, isn't really about mocking race itself. It seems more focused on highlighting the quirks, the contradictions, maybe the downright cringeworthy behaviors that pop up in cross-cultural interactions or within specific social groups.
It relies heavily on that recognition factor.
Yeah, totally. Audiences laugh because they see a bit of truth, a spark of lived reality in the performance, even though it's obviously amplified for laughs.
And this deep dive really shows us that whether you view Druski's work as, harmless satire or as a problematic caricature, it often depends entirely on your individual perspective.
Shaped by your own experiences, your cultural understanding.
Absolutely. But what seems undeniable is Druski's sheer ability to spark both genuine laughter and pretty spirited debate.
Which puts him in good company, historically speaking.
Right. It proves he's part of that long, significant tradition of humor that pushes culture to confront itself, to maybe examine its own assumptions, reevaluate its boundaries, even when that conversation gets uncomfortable.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And maybe it leaves you wondering, where do you draw the line? That line between humor that brings people together and humor that, maybe even unintentionally, ends up pushing people apart.